So ITAL doesn't mean completely free from processing, but again, it's as close to nature and natural processes as possible. Then when we're talking about ITAL, living in balance and harmony with nature, would be the ITAL live. Vegan now. Let's talk about vegan. Vegan is just plant-based. You know what I mean? So ITAL would meet the vegan standard, but vegan wouldn't necessarily meet the ITAL standard. For example, you couldn't have vegan, you can have vegan pepperoni. You couldn't have ITAL pepperoni. You know what I mean? You couldn't have ITAL bacon. So there are places that cater to plant-based lifestyle. So it's already in Africa, and I think this is a huge economic opportunity for Rastafari to come in and to fill that niche and that growing demand, which is only going to grow. If we have a population of 1.3 billion people, you can imagine how big, and we see the growing market share that vegan products are. And as people get educated, they'll move away from vegan and want healthier options. This is where the Ital Standard comes in. This is where the tremendous potential. So, just to show you the revolution that is happening on the continent, we're in Osu, upper scale area. This is an African-owned vegan restaurant. So let's check it out. Tatale, when you're in Osu, you want to come. Beautiful people dining here. Watch your royal queen. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So you can see how clean and nice the place is. There's the kitchen. Very, very beautiful.
Well, Lion Voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion Voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion Voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion Voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion Voice. Them could never conquer the mountains. Thousands of years and counting. Ethiopia rise again unto the world. Now we are announcing. Them a plan for war, we a plan for peace. And now we see them wanna go dismantle the base. When the trumpet sound and the violence cease, how we say one go build up the cities. Well, them a plan for war, we a plan for peace. And now we see them wanna go dismantle the base. Rastafari crown as the Prince of Peace. Him tell the youths them fi build up them countries. Well, solar energy that them a see. The whole city powered by the sun's energy. The road them make out of hemp and concrete. Neighborhoods full of fruit trees that taste sweet. The youths put down them guns, them harvest and a reap. The beautiful gardens will line every street.
Greetings in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I. Glory and honor in the name of His chosen Queen, Empress Waziri Menen. My name is Kwasi Bonsu, aka the Chasmach Kwasi, aka Ras Kwasi, aka the Reading Ras, aka the Panafrican Happy Man. I'm an entertainment attorney, I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an actionist, and right now I'm the host of the Lion Voice. Welcome to the Lion Voice Network. It's a joy. If this is your first time visiting, I just want to say welcome. You're watching a journey unfold. Today, the topic is ITAL versus vegan. We want to talk about one of the core tenets of Rastafari, which is the ITALivity. And we want to put some context around it because not all ones who say Rastafari are ITAL. ITAL is, there are levels to everything, you know, so Ital would be described as the highest level in terms of the Rastafari way of life. But just because you're not Ital doesn't mean you're not Rastafari. We have different parts of the movement that are not Ital, and we'll get into that later. But again, welcome to the Lion Voice Network. We are here to really explain and to clarify a lot of reasoning around Rastafari. We are here on the second largest search engine on the planet, YouTube, and so it's important. And I just want to say, if you subscribe, you're part of the Lion Pride. I have to big up everyone who has been joining us on this journey. Some of the items were here since we had 10 subscribers, since we had 100 subscribers, since we had 500 subscribers. Right now, we're over 860 subscribers. By the time we watch this, we'll be past 870 subscribers. So again, we have to just give thanks for everyone. We're over 3,000 watch hours. That means you all have been going through, watching the videos, not just subscribing, but actually engaging with the content. I've been getting comments, and it's been one of the most satisfying things on this journey in life. May I tell you, if you just get the feed forward from people to put out things. And as an entertainment attorney, I've been telling my clients to build their creative ecosystem for years now, and doing it myself, actually practicing what I'm preaching, is very satisfying. You know, making the time. Sometimes we have to stay up late editing, you know, burning the midnight oil. So we definitely give thanks. So that's why we give thanks to the Lion Pride on Patreon, because they're actually investing. They see the value in the work, and they're actually spending their money. 3 Fire Angels right now. We had 2 for many months. 2 Fire Angels were standing side by side with I, supporting the work. A 3rd Fire Angel has joined, and we're asking, if you love the work, support the work, you know. That being said, we're talking about Ital versus vegan, because a lot of people would use them interchangeably, but that is not the case. We cannot use these things interchangeably, because Ital and vegan are 2 different things. And I want to just big up the Association of Rastafari Creatives. One of the things that we have determined within the Association of Rastafari Creatives is that farmers are creatives. So we're looking at food security, food sovereignty, and I'm going to have some guests on Lion Talk where we're going to get strictly into the agriculture. We're going to start that reasoning on African liberation, because we can't stop. We're going to start that reasoning on African Liberation Day, because we cannot talk about African liberation without talking about food security, food sovereignty. You cannot be free. If you feed the people, you can free the people. You know what I mean? You cannot be free if you're getting your food supply by a third party. So on our 100th episode, we are going to be reasoning live. We're going to be doing our first YouTube live with Dr. Kadamawi Knife, one of my bona fide brethren along this journey. Again, I tell people my superpower is my network, and I've only scratched the surface with this platform. This is why I know this platform will be successful and become the largest Rastafari platform on the second largest search engine on the planet, because I know the network, and I know once we start really touching base, because Rastafari is global, we have not tapped into our potential, and the type of content that we have to produce, where we're looking forward, where we're talking about the building of Zion, where we're solution based. There are not a lot of that. There's not a lot of that happening. A lot of time we tend to talk about history, we talk about politics, we talk about, you know, things in general. But even this conversation about Ital, I'm gonna frame it in the building of Zion moving forward, because we say forward ever, backward never. Big up Kwame Nkrumah. My thing with Rastafari that I love and that attracted I is not the historical, although I study the history. My thing with Rastafari is the building of Zion. That's what gets I man excited. The creation of a new reality, building that alternative, utilizing, and we're not talking about reinventing the wheel because there's nothing new under the sun. It's a reimagining of the existing, how we can put things together creatively to make them sustainable. We're done with monoculture, for example. With a permaculture, all of these things, food forests, you saw when we had the Kwaku Ando Sustainability Institute, you saw that there was an indigenous food forest, there's a regular food forest. So these are things that are being implemented, the proof of concepts are being developed actively, and this is what I want to use this platform to bring forward, because I think that we have reached a certain level of stagnation within the movement, as our legendary elders have passed away. We went through a little period of kind of wandering in the wilderness, but now we give thanks. Fire angels are rising all over creation. Repatriation is on the agenda again, because for a while the thing kind of get lukewarm around repatriation, but I give thanks when I'm trotting to Ghana, when I'm trotting to Ethiopia. We know ones who are doing works in Ethiopia, in Ghana, Kenya, South Africa, trotting Tanzania. Big up, and we're going to be having a repatriation summit with the Universal Development of Rastafari. I haven't even started talking about IDOR, of which I'm a founding member, but repatriation summit. There's a lot of work, trust me, family. But let's go into the topic, because there's no end to reasoning in Zion, only continuation. What are we talking about? We're talking about I-tal versus vegan. First of all, what is I-tal? I have the honor and the privilege of living with the brethren who created the word sound I-tal, one of our Rastafari elders, Ras Iris. And I recently had a reasoning with him, because all of this reasoning around I-tal, creating an Ital Standard, which is something that we'll also talk about on this channel. I'm actively involved in this work. Doing some of this work, we have to go back to the origins and the source of where this came from. And when I reasoned with the elder Ras Iris, he said that the word Ital really derived from the word natural. And he gave the origin of how they started trotting Ital, because in the early days, most of the elders were fishermen. They ate fish, different things. This is Jamaica is an island, so they weren't necessarily what we would consider strictly plant-based in the early days. He gave the story of being harassed by the police forces. The police forces came to look for him. He was there on Paradise Street. Police come look for him, and so he made a trot up into Warker Hills, and of course, because he had to keep a very camouflage profile, become a mountain lion, he wasn't coming down, so of course cut off access to the fish. So they started to feed on all of the fruits. He said that the mountain was full of fruit trees, guava, papaya, all these things. So they started feast on the fruit trees, and they didn't have salt, they didn't have certain things up there. So the I-tal Liberty, that camp in Warwicker Hill, and this is in the 50s that we're talking about, that these things are occurring. Now, before this, I want to be clear. People were plant-based before that. I'm not saying that plant-based comes from, I'm talking about the origin of the word sound I-tal, where we, the inspiration, that light bulb moment where a word sound come to connect with a way of life. Because plant-based liberty is from the foundation of creation. When you look at in the garden before, even in the biblical account, before Adam and Eve start eat flesh, they were plant-based, eating from the garden until, fall from grace. We look at most different cultures, you're gonna see there are aspects of the culture that is plant-based in origin. Daniel in the lion's den, no meat, nah go eat the king's meat, them thing there, So all of these things we know, whether it's Kemet, whether it's Ethiopia, whether it's Kush, you would have always had ones who are plant-based going back to the before recorded time. So I want to be clear, but the word sound I-tal is a modern manifestation which encapsulates. So when we talk about I-tal, we're talking about a plant-based way of living, way of thinking that is closest to nature. The word vital, I-tal is vital, so vital become a part of the definition in terms of, yes, if it's natural, it's vital. And the way of I-tal living is trying to keep things as close to their natural state as possible. So there are degrees of I-tal then. So, because I-tal can also allow for a certain level of processing. Because think of this, if you're cooking things, it's certain level of processing. If you're bubbling an I-tal pot, then you cook down your coconut milk and certain things. That's a certain level of combining and processing. As opposed to you have levels where you have the raw I-tal. And my guest on Lion Talk Live, Kadamawi Knife, is one of the preeminent brethren where pure live sip. You know what I mean? When I met that brethren over 20 years ago, up at the University of the West Indies, I'm chat up at the brethren Taylor Hall, and seat up and every man get them steam chalice, and them time there the solar dryer was there and drying up jackfruit, drying up papaya, all kind of banana, and brethren was sharing these things with I, and trust me, you never taste. That's how I come to love jackfruit. That probably was my first real interaction with jackfruit, to be honest, because I didn't grow up eating jackfruit as a youth. We grew up most of my life in foreign, in Canada, Toronto. So that was really my first interaction. So I have to go make knife know say. What is important is that we understand that this is a way of life. So I-tal is again least bit of processing. It's also higher than organic standard, because there can be no, with organic you can use things like pig's blood, you can, there's different things. So I-tal would be completely plant-based, compost. Now some ones would use things like bat guana, but again it's processed. The plant has been processed through the animal's stomach. So the natural fertilizer and these things in most cases could probably still be considered I-tal. But again, there's levels to the I-tal, because you also have plant-based compost, which is not processed through the animal but processed in a compost heap and things. But even that, you have worms and things, so it's still going through processing. So I-tal doesn't mean completely free from processing, but again, it's as close to nature and natural processes as possible. Then when we're talking about I-tal, living in balance and harmony with nature, this would be the I-tal live. Vegan now, let's talk about vegan. Vegan is just plant-based. So I-tal would meet the vegan standard, but vegan wouldn't necessarily meet the I-tal standard. For example, you couldn't have vegan, you can have vegan pepperoni. You couldn't have I-tal pepperoni. You couldn't have I-tal bacon. Those things, where you try to convert a plant. Now you can make things that might approximate the taste, So when you're talking about vegan, it can be highly processed. A lot of junk food can be vegan. Lay's potato chips, for example, would be vegan, but they wouldn't necessarily be I-tal. So these are things that we have to understand. I-tal standard is a higher standard than the vegan standard. One of the things as we move forward for the building of Zion is we have to adopt this I-tal standard. You hear Iman talk about the Rastafari man standard. as Rastafari, we have to adopt the Ital Standard. I'm not saying we can't, from time to time, deal with vegan things. You know what I mean? You can, but most of us are feeding on a vegan lifestyle in, especially in America, UK, and these things, because it's easier. You know what I mean? You get things that are processed, a lot of soy things, and working long hours. I'm guilty of these things, so I have to talk. You know what I mean? I eat much better when I'm in Ghana. I eat much better when I'm in Jamaica. When I'm here, you know what I mean, there's little things that you're going to pick up. We've been doing a lot better since we've been spending more time in Ghana. However, I know a lot of us, and how do I know this? We can see how we appear. You know, we have a lot of Rastas who are overweight. You know, I see a lot of bellies on my brethren them. You know, see the weight on my sister in them. And this is because we're not really living to the heights of the Ital. There's a lot of carbs, a lot of sugar, refined sugars, you know, and these things. So we're seeing within Rastafari populations the same health issues that are affecting the larger population of black people, you know, because we eat in the comfort foods, we're under high stress. Different things are affecting us, you know. On the next episode of Lion Talk, episode 98, I reason with Dr. Aini, who is a retired critical care nurse, and we talked about it, you know. Why are so many of I and I sistren and brethren overweight? And same thing, you know, how we eat is impacting us. So we have to all move to this Ital Standard in the same way that we have to move to the Rastafari man standard. It's the Armageddon family. So everything that we are doing now requires us to become larger than we have been, greater in outlook, you know. And these are hard conversations that we have to have as a community. Why are our elders dying at 60 and 70 years old? You know, why aren't we living like the people of Okinawa, Japan, who have the most centenarians? Rastafari should be, you know, 100, 120, running up and down. But because we're not living to that standard, we are falling like the rest of the society. So it's important. We have to burn that fire hot. Now, in terms of Ital versus vegan, one of the things that I want to talk about as well is Ital on the continent. You know, Ital, plant-based liberty on the continent. And what we realize from reasoning with my African Rastafari brethren and sisters is that most of them grow up with a plant-based life, and you know, every now and then they would get a little meat here and there, you know. But for the most part, most of their intake was plant-based just because of the economics. Now that, you know, the place is becoming more westernized, people are eating more meat. But traditional African cuisine is very friendly to plant-based livity, especially in the countryside or in the village where, you know, animal has to be slaughtered, or they don't have a lot of refrigeration in them time there. You know what I mean? So plant-based is not foreign to Africa, contrary to what many Africans would have you believe in this time. And big up my Nigerian brethren. I went to Nigeria, and when we asked for plant-based cuisine, they looked at I and I like we were crazy. You know, this was 2007 though. I think things have changed. I actually saw, I think, a vegan restaurant opened in Lagos as well. So this is something that we have to overstand, this revolution. And remember, when the Rastafari elders came with Ital and plant-based, they were considered crazy. They you know, health problems, people were saying you're malnourished, all of these things. Still, again, the plant-based in form of vegan become a multi-billion-dollar industry. So that's why we say our elders never miss. But in terms of the building of Zion, you know, building that alternative on the African continent as the foundation, utilizing the 6th region as the satellites, the diaspora as the global reach. We say that this plant-based lifestyle, which is very amenable to most black people, because why? We evolved in the tropics, so our structures are evolved to process plant-based diet. Sometimes you hear Europeans talk about they cannot, they try the vegan and they get very sick, but it makes sense because if you think about their ancestors living, following the herds, of deer and from the ice age, the woolly mammoth before they were wiped off of the earth, and bison and all of them things, that they survived by following. So they would have evolved a system that processed a lot of flesh, animal flesh, So it might be more difficult, but for us as Africans, most Africans that I know that are plant-based are thriving. You know what I mean? They're thriving. I'm not a show-off because I could get up now and show a six-pack, but we're not gonna do that. But why I can do that at the age of 45 going on to 46 is because, again, the plant-based and also the intermittent fasting, which we'll have an episode on intermittent fasting. But when you're plant-based, it's just your structure agree to it. I've had many comments from my brethren and sisters that I know from high school that, we haven't changed much, things of that, people I see from college, and I attribute that to plant-based. You know what I mean? We don't look as inflamed as some of our compatriots that are eating meat or heavy animal-based diets. So Africa, I wanted to share some footage of what some people consider to be the best plant-based or vegan restaurant in Accra. I had the privilege of going there with Iman Queen. We had a very beautiful, not romantic, because we're not Roman. We had an Ethiopian tick or Afromantic, or just a Ital nice time together at this restaurant. The presentation was very beautiful. I actually spoke with the owner, so you can see that right here. This is the owner. What's your name, sir?
Ben.
Ben. And you came from the UK?
Yes, I was originally from Ghana.
Originally from Ghana?
I live in the UK.
Okay, so tell a message to African American, Caribbean people who are plant-based, they're Ital, they want to come home. What would you say to them?
Well, thank you for this opportunity. As we know, our original diet is plant-based. Somebody pushes away from this wonderful diet. And I went over to UK. Actually, I was a vegan plant-based here in Ghana before I traveled. I lived in the UK about 40 years, 40. And I try to do what I believe in over there. I have a restaurant over there. It's called 222 Vegan Cuisine.
Okay.
In West London, in Fulham. My daughter is running that at the moment. But anytime I come home in Ghana, I feel there's something missing. And so I decided to do this over here. And most of our brothers and sisters from America, the African Americans, they come here and they feel at home. And they even wonder if they find something like this here. Yes, it is here. And so please, whenever you visit Ghana, please come and enjoy the wonderful vegan cuisine that we have over here. Thank you.
Thank you. Blessings, blessings. So, you can see that plant-based is already in Africa. I want to big up from even the first time that I went to Ghana in 2005. I have to big up Miss Pat. Miss Pat was there. She's not far from the airport. Plant-based. She has a restaurant there now. Also, I have to big up Mahogany, the one at ANC. That's the home base, ANC Mall for all of the Ghana family, or the one near Jubilee House. I can't remember the name of the area there, but Mahogany is there as a plant-based option. And there are more restaurants that are opening. You can also get plant-based options at the Thai restaurants, the Chinese restaurants as well. Big up Jamrock. We did a catered reception at Jamrock when we had our tour with Habisha, and they provided a very tasty plant-based meal for us. So there are places that cater to plant-based lifestyle. So it's already in Africa, and I think this is a huge economic opportunity for Rastafari to come in and to fill that niche and that growing demand, which is only going to grow. If we have a population of 1.3 billion people, you can imagine how big, and we see the growing market share that vegan products are. And as people get educated, they'll move away from vegan and want healthier options. This is where the Ital Standard comes in. This is where the tremendous potential from the Ital Standard. And in all my work, whether it be with ARC, whether it be across the board, we're really focusing on agriculture. Again, this is the Armageddon. We see that Russia, United States are at war. Ukraine, we see the prices of food that has gone up. Food security, food sovereignty more important than ever. We're going to find out who the real revolutionaries are in this time. And the food shortages are going to get worse as the conflict spreads, and it will spread. You know, we look at the historical analogy. If you look at in the 19th century, you know, you had the Spanish flu right before the 20s. We had COVID right before this period. Then we have the Roaring 20s. Right now, you touch the road, the party, them turn up. Why? Because people were inside. So the Roaring 20s is taking place. At the end of the Roaring 20s, we had the Great Depression, a catastrophic collapse in the global infrastructure, in particular in the United States, that coincided with the coronation of the Black King and the Black Queen. You know, I have my theory, you know, because there was a run on the banks. I think, you know, the elites thought that when His Majesty claimed the throne, everything was going to drop on ground. But that was not how the prophecy was to unfold. You know, His Majesty gave Ethiopia a constitution, and the building of Zion commenced. He was trying to recruit African Americans at first, and was given a lot of red tape by the State Department to build Ethiopia. And he said he was looking for black people globally because it wouldn't disturb the Ethiopians, you know, because seeing foreigners, seeing white people was, you know, Ethiopians were very distrustful. So he tried to recruit black people first. A lot of people don't know these facts, because you have some detractors that want to say that when His Majesty was convening the Organization of African Unity, he was jumping on the bandwagon, and don't know, say His Majesty was dealing with this Pan-African worldview from when Nkrumah them a baby. So it's very important. So when we're talking about I-tal, again, we're talking about a way of life. When we're talking about vegan, we're talking about plant-based, but it's broad. It can be very processed. So I-tal is the highest standard that you can get when it comes on to food. And this, again, provides us with a unique opportunity as Rastafari to generate billions of dollars. If we look at agro-business, if we look at, because I-tal also extends to how the food is grown. There's a spiritual component to I-tal, you know. The drums have to play, you know what I mean? Most of the Rastafari farmers, them chant Ayabingi, you know, them fields and them things. So the pulse, you know what I mean, sound and power, you know, the food. So I-tal have so much permaculture. We couldn't be doing monoculture and saying that we're growing I-tal, because monoculture is very detrimental for the soil health. And I-tal has to be sustaining and in balance with nature. So, you know, as we scale, you know, we're going to have to see how we can do the food forest. But again, if we're using human labor or we're doing things, we have to be creative in how we build these new agro businesses that are going to feed this I-tal demand that is going to rise. So again, there's a tremendous opportunity in the building of Zion. I-tal is going to be an essential component. And again, I've been doing some work behind the scenes. I'm not ready to share yet, but again, I'll be bringing some of the people that we're collaborating with. But just know, again, I tell people the golden era of Rastafari, some people would say, was the 70s and the late 60s after His Majesty's visit to Jamaica. I'm going to tell the item with confidence, the glory days of Rastafari are all ahead of us. What you will see arising, what has come will pale in comparison to the glory. You know, once we embrace the teaching of His Imperial Majesty and we actually implement the teaching of His Imperial Majesty. His Majesty said that Africa uprising will be unparalleled in human history, and I are a part of that as His sons and daughters. So we feel very good again to rise up this Ital Standard and to challenge ourselves to eat more Ital, to live more Ital, and to speak with an Ital meditation, because the time has come for the lions to tell our own story, and this is the Lion's Voice.
Them could never conquer the mountains, thousands of years and counting. Ethiopia rise again unto the world, now we are announcing. Them a plan for war, we a plan for peace, and now we see them wanna go dismantle the base. When the trumpet sound and the violence cease, how we say one go build up the cities. Well, them a plan for war, we a plan for peace, and now we see them wanna go dismantle the base. Rastafari crown as the Prince of Peace, him tell the youths them fi build up them countries. Well, solar energy that them a see, the whole city powered by the sun's energy. The road them make out of hemp and concrete, neighborhoods full of fruit trees that taste sweet. The youths put down them guns, them harvest and a reap. The beautiful gardens will line every street. Tired of the bloodshed, them done with the beef. Not even animals for dead, them burn out the meat. Where people say Haile Selassie, I see Nile. When they see say him a treat the dirt like a child. Peace on earth from the banks of the Nile. That's why we giving thanks in style. See say Babylon a weapon, them a stockpile. Babylon a wicked, kill them brother and smile. Lion, Babylon a reptile. Them a plant fish, shed blood, we got plans for the soil. Them a plan for war, we a plan for peace, and now we see them wanna go dismantle the base. When the trumpet sound and the violence cease, how we say one go build up the cities. Well, them a plan for war, we a plan for peace, and now we see them wanna go dismantle the base. Rastafari crown as the Prince of Peace, him tell the youths them fi build up them countries. No more gullies, proper sanitation, proper toilets with proper filtration, clean water for the youths them fi use. Our sons and daughters safe, no more child abuse. Africa arise, read it in the news. On the day when Rastafari ready, wicked have he move.